Welcome to Crime Stoppers. I'm your host, Chip Brown. Heartland Crime Stoppers is a community-based program designed to help law enforcement solve crimes by providing a way for the public to phone in tips anonymously and receive cash rewards of up to $3,000 for information that leads to an arrest, the recovery of stolen property, or the recovery of illegal drugs. Heartland Crime Stoppers is funded through the State of Florida Office of the Attorney General, Crime Stoppers Trust Fund, and through donations from the community. Citizens and local businesses make Crime Stoppers work. The Polk County Correctional Institute is located in Polk City, Florida. It is a level 5 facility that houses approximately 1,200 male adult inmates. The custody levels at this facility include minimum, medium, and closed custody. While incarcerated, inmates can earn GED and obtain an adult basic education. Substance abuse programs are also available to inmates who are facing drug and alcohol dependencies. Jeff Woodley is a detention deputy and a dog handler for PCI. Jeff, welcome to the show.
Welcome, thank you.
We have Daisy with us today.
Yes. One of my bloodhounds that we use for tracking.
Yeah. Now, you have a kind of an interesting track of how you got into detention at all. So tell us how you kind of ended up at PCI.
Actually, I was working for Publix supermarkets in the meat department, and a buddy of mine went through the police academy and was using all kinds of different techniques on us, defensive tactics, and decided that I wanted to get into that. I really would enjoy that. I always liked helping people if I could. Somebody stopped on the side of the road, it drove me crazy if I couldn't stop and see if I couldn't help them out. So he said, why don't you do it yourself? So I went through Lake County VOTEC and went through the police academy, and it was /corrections. So I really had no wants to be a correction officer, but Lake County at the time had kicked out so many people from the academy. There was just a lot of applicants, and I didn't have any experience, no military or college, so it really wasn't looking good. And another one of my friends said, hey, you should go try, out of this county, try Polk. And I drove down there because it was closing that day and filled out a paper application. Remember when we used to do that?
Oh, yes.
But the lady found out I was certified, and she grabbed onto my shirt and wouldn't let me go. She said, stay right here. They were having a hard time getting certified officers. So she sent me for a drug test, and then I went through orientation and started working on the compound.
Yeah. Now, you didn't just get hired on at PCI as a canine handler. It was kind of an interesting story of how that came about.
Yes, sir. I worked 4 to 12 at first, 4 p.m., 12 a.m. Really great shift. It was 8 hours then. Met some great people, of course, great supervisors. Really loved it. Really liked what I was doing. And then they saw that, and they promoted me, kind of put me on admin shift to run inside grounds. So I made the inmates, make sure the inmates are working, cleaning up the yard and mowing and trash and all that good stuff. But my supervisor then was on the canine team, and Sergeant Harris, he said, I think you ought to come out and try this. I think you'd like it. So I went out and tried it out and absolutely loved it.
Now, did you really have any idea that you would like being involved with the canine as much as you do?
No, I had heard about the canine team, and I don't know, it just didn't click or anything with me. I've had dogs that I've done some obedience training with, but mainly for duck hunting, and just around the house. And but I had never ran behind a dog or had a dog tracking. I do a lot of hunting and fishing, but never used a dog for really any of that, except for birds, but totally different.
Yeah, yeah.
And once I got out there, I said, this is amazing. I really, really enjoy this. I like this. Laying the track was fun, and you kind of go through stages as you come out. And it's fun now that I'm the canine sergeant. I have a team, and I get to train people, and I get to see them go through the different stages where they enjoy laying a track. First they come out and they're nervous, but then they enjoy laying a track until they get lost. Then they feel real reassured when we go and find them. But then when they start running behind the dog and they start seeing what the dog is actually doing, how they track, and being able to read the dog is what we call it. Pretty much seeing their visuals, what they give us visually, that they're on that track. And there's little techniques to it also when they miss, to what you notice. And and then you get to go actually find somebody, and that's of course the highlight, especially if it's the missing people that are good people are the ones that I really,
because you don't. I mean,
the most.
People think that you're just tracking escaped inmates, but there's so much more that you do other than that. Helping the agencies and, like you were mentioning, people that are dementia patients that have walked away and lost or missing children. It's just so much more than what people think.
Yes, sir. That is our main focus and that's what we work on the most, of course, is in case an inmate were to escape. And we have ran several of those. I shouldn't say several. A little over 25 years now, so I've been on 4 that were successful recaptures. Yeah. But that's what we mainly focus on. But we're lucky enough that Grady Judd, sheriff, will call us if he needs help with trying to find somebody. If his handlers are tied up or whatever's going on, then they'll give us a call, and we're more than welcome to help them out. We're also a free asset, so that's good.
Well, it's just using what's available in the county, because it works both ways, I'm sure. So, now you were talking earlier, before we started the show, about you track with 2 dogs.
I have. We the Department of Corrections holds some competitions. We're known for the bloodhounds. We're known for our tracking ability, and quite a bit of history there. But in one competition, I had a young pup. He was not even a year old. I think he was 7 months, Chase. And I had an older dog, Cody, that was very good at tracking also and very fast. But when they work together, it becomes a competition. And they really work even harder and faster. They push each other even more. And in the competition, there's no bad guys. You've got officers have laid the track. They put out some flags during the track, usually 4. And it's timed event, of course, so you want the best time, so it's an all-out run, and you get time off for the flags that you recover, like articles, if they were some bad guy was to drop something, or a missing person were to drop something, so you get time off for that. But yeah, 2 dogs can really work in a competition. I also used it once with a dog that she didn't track very fast. She would do very well, but it would take her 20 minutes to go across this room. So one of the canine sergeants that helped train me when I first started was Sergeant Jones, and he said, "Why don't you put her with another dog?" And tried that, and oh my gosh, the competition, and got her sped up, and she was one of my best dogs after that.
You said that the dogs get water before the handler does.
That's something I tell my guys, yes. If you're getting out to get something to drink, then the dog gets water first. Yeah. Eat, go to the bathroom, all that good stuff. They can't let themselves out, they can't go get it, so we need to make sure they're taken care of. And the state spends a lot of money on them, so they need to be very well taken care of. And they are very well taken care of. People don't do this unless they love dogs, and they don't do it. There's no extra pay, so it's for because you love actually doing this. It
was interesting as you were coming in with the dogs. The heck with you or
Nobody knows my name.
Everybody wanted to get up and pet Daisy and pet Bella. So
I joked yesterday in the administration building. I said I'm gonna have to get a shirt that says I'm with Bella, so maybe when she's not around, they would notice me, But. Yes, it's nice though. We do a lot of demonstrations for the kids in different schools all over Polk County. We've been invited. You hook up with one teacher and they move schools, and then tell somebody else, and then which is great. We absolutely love it. My colonel a couple years ago said, "Hey, why don't you get in the parade?" So we went and did the Polk City Parade, and it's short enough that we can run the dogs down the side of the road, and all the kids get to love on the dogs, and we throw candy out, and it's actually a good time, a lot of fun. And I get to tell them a little bit about the institution and what we do, And one of the main things I try to tell the kids is, not all the inmates are bad guys. Some of them just have made bad choices and mistakes, but not to be deceived. There are bad people in this world, and you need to make sure that you tell mom and dad where you're at and be there, stuff like that. So
it's so important just for make those right decisions, and then if you make a wrong decision, then you just have to get it corrected.
Be on this show.
Yeah, exactly. Now, as you training, I know you're training Bella now. What do you look for in a young dog and a puppy when you're trying to train them?
Bloodhounds are just amazing. Their nose is unbelievable. It's mostly instinct, and that's all we're working off of. Pretty much what we do is we start them when they're real young, 6, 8 weeks. As soon as they can start running around, we try to build that drive for us to chase a man. Running from them, screaming like idiots, puppy, 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 and all that good stuff. But then what we'll do is we'll have somebody lay a track for us, not very long, maybe 50 yards, and some taller grass, where they see them walk away, and I hold on to Bella, and she'll usually start, whining. All the puppies usually do, yelping, want to go get that person, and I'm holding them back. They can't, and then they'll duck out of sight. And once you let them go, and they put their nose down, you've got them. And pretty much just leapfrog from there on out. When you make a track older, then you're going to make it shorter. And I mean older in age as far as how long ago. But then long, you want to make it fresher. And you just keep leapfrogging. 3 hours seems to be the mark. I don't know where that came from, but for me. But it seems to be the mark that scent changes. And once you get them past 3 hours, you can go 24, 72. It's just that 3 hour threshold seems like you have to cross.
Yeah, they're an amazing tool for law enforcement, and we certainly thank you for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
For more information on PCI, you can look them up on the web at www.dc.state.florida.us. Crime Stoppers provides a way for local law enforcement to receive information on crimes while keeping the people providing that information anonymous. These efforts increase tips, which in turn solve more crimes and identify criminals in our community. Here's a look at some of our most recent cases.
On May 25th at 1:58 p.m., the Lakeland Police Department responded to Chase Bank at 5555 Walt Loop Road in reference to a bank robbery that had just occurred. The suspect is described as a Caucasian or Latino male in his late 20s to early 30s, approximately 5'10", 180 pounds, with a groomed beard and mustache. He was last seen wearing a gray hat, aviator-style sunglasses, black Bimini Bay Outfitters long-sleeve shirt, blue jeans with holes, and tan boots. The suspect ran to a gold or beige color Chevrolet Cruze and entered the rear passenger door of the vehicle. The vehicle was observed driving south through the Plantation Plaza towards the exit at Old Cumbie Road. Around 11 a.m. on Friday, May 17th, at least two guys decided to invite themselves into a residence in the Evergreen Mobile Home Park at 6650 New Tampa Highway in Lakeland. This is the suspect. He has numerous tattoos on his left arm. Our warrant of the day comes to us courtesy of David Bennett Jr. He has a Polk County warrant for felony battery and criminal mischief, which also means he's in violation of probation. He has been a guest at the Polk County Jail bed and breakfast for an unlucky 13 times, and they want him back as a frequent guest. David Bennett Jr. is 37 years old, and his last known address, other than the Polk County Jail, is on Orange Avenue South in Fort Meade. He's 5'10", 210 pounds, with blonde hair and blue eyes. Polk County Sheriff's Office detectives are seeking the public's help in the theft of a wallet from a Sunoco station in Lakeland. Around 3:30 p.m. on Thursday, May 8th, the suspect seen here went into the store located at 5565 New Tampa Highway and took a wallet that was left behind. The suspect is described as a white male, 35 to 50 years old, 5'8", with gray hair and a mustache, wearing a blue plaid long-sleeve shirt, and his name is possibly Tim. On May 11th, this suspect entered the Macy's at 231 City Center Street and stuffed 7 pairs of shorts and 3 T-shirts, all valued at $273, into a large backpack. He was last seen going across Avenue G Southwest. The images may not be very clear, but he does have distinctive clothes. These 2 suspects loaded up on a whole cart of groceries at the Walmart located at 355 Cypress Gardens Boulevard in Winter Haven, and also decided they needed $1,000 worth of gift cards. They distracted the cashier, and the suspect in the black shirt hit the cash out button. The cashiers hold the cart while she summons the manager, but the suspects took off with the gift cards and left. Polk County Sheriff's Office deputies are investigating a hit-and-run fatal crash of a bicyclist at Washington Avenue and U.S. Highway 27 near Lake Wales. Deputies believe the crash occurred just after 2 a.m., according to a photo timestamp. Polk County Fire Rescue responded to the scene and found 59-year-old Raymond Johnson, Lake Wales, on the grassy shoulder of Washington Avenue near the sidewalk, and rendered aid. Mr. Johnson was taken to the Lake Wales Medical Center for treatment of his injuries, but later succumbed to those injuries. If you have any information on any of the cases you've just seen, or any information on an unsolved crime, please contact Heartland Crime Stoppers and leave an anonymous tip. The toll-free tip line is 1-800-226-TIPS. That's 8477. You can also leave an anonymous web tip by going to www.heartlandcrimestoppers.com and click on the Give a Tip tab, or by going to www.p3tips.com. Don't forget, you can download our free P3 Tips app on your smart device. Whichever way you choose to leave a tip, you will remain 100% anonymous. If your tip results in an arrest, the recovery of stolen property, or the recovery of illegal drugs, you could be eligible for a cash reward of up to $3,000.
Welcome back to Crime Stoppers. I'm your host, Chip Brown. The purpose of the Criminal Justice Professionalism Services is to promote and facilitate the competency and professional conduct of criminal justice officers through a partnership with criminal justice agencies in providing entry-level and in-service officer training, criminal justice leadership development, and executive training, and maintaining disciplinary procedures. Join us in the studio is Chuck Reaume with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. Now, Chuck, you have an interesting history of how you actually got into law enforcement, having come from health spas.
That's right, Chip. I first started with the health industry in Detroit. That's where I grew up at. So when I came back from the service, I started into the health spa business, and I ran 2 clubs up there in Detroit, one in Royal Oak and one in Lincoln Park. And then I was asked to come down to Florida to run a couple of clubs. And the first one was over there in Palm Beach Gardens, where Jack Nicklaus was a member back then. And then they were opening up a new one in Lakeland, Florida. And then I was asked to come over here. So I moved over here to Lakeland, and I worked there for a number of years here in Lakeland. Yeah. So.
Now that was the Roman Spa in the Lakeland Mall, because I remember, you know, when it first moved in, when they built the mall.
Right.
Now you had a couple of police officers that would come in, and that kind of got your interest going in it.
Oh, that's the last thing, Chip, I ever thought I wanted to do was be in police work, coming back home from Vietnam. But the officers kept coming in, the officers from Lakeland PD, and they kept asking me, don't you think you'd like to get into law enforcement and so forth? And I was getting on there, and I was almost 30 years old, and I says, well, I'm going to have to make a decision, a lifestyle change here. Mm-hmm. So I went down and saw Larry Alexander down there at the Lakeland Police Department, and the next thing I know, I was going to the Law Enforcement Academy.
Now you retired as a captain at Lakeland Police Department. We worked together for a number of years. And you were one of the lead instructors, not only for some of the training courses, for at Polk State College and the academy, but also one of the lead instructors, or the lead instructor for defensive tactics for what, 17 years, something like that?
17, 18, 19 years, something like that. I just sort of lost track, but I started there at Polk Community College when there was no defensive tactic, really any course with the basic recruit. So the training center director there asked me if I would develop a program, an 80-hour incentive course for law enforcement and correctional officers in defensive tactics. So that's what I did. We developed a specialized program there until, let's say, 4 or 5 years later, where FDLE and the state decided there needed to be a structured program in the academy, and especially the high liability areas.
Yeah, that's so important, because you just don't really understand what can happen to you, and especially in defensive tactics, and learning how to avoid most of those situations to start with is so important. But sometimes when you're in there, you need to know what to do once you're there.
Yeah, exactly. It's a matter of learning to de-escalate rather than escalate right away a lot of times. But yeah, it was a real pleasure for me to work with the new recruits coming in the basic academy there, especially later on when they came up to you and says, you know what, this happened to me. And I remember what we did in the academy, and it really helped me out. That was really satisfying.
Now, since you have retired from the Lakeland Police Department, then you joined the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. So, they think of FDLE, maybe they think of the labs, and maybe,
Sure.
the security end, the
Sure.
law enforcement end. Tell us what you do with Florida Department of Law Enforcement.
Yeah, the FDLE is known for their investigative, multi-jurisdictional investigations with other agencies and their forensics. But in my section of the professionalism area, when it has to do with standards and training, we're the ones that develop the training in the training section. And in my area of field services, we make sure that the training is being delivered per commission guidelines. And in doing so, I'm assigned to different agencies around the state. There's 10 of us that do what I do. And I have Polk, Osceola, Orange, Brevard, and I'm going to have some of Pasco County. And my job is to make sure that we keep those agencies compliant. And how do we do that? Well, we make sure that people that are tasked with that job at their agencies are well trained. So we actually go there and work one-on-one with those people involved in those areas, either in human resources or in training. And then when they hire someone, there's certain state statutes they have to meet, certain requirements, certain documentations, a procedure they have to do. So once they complete that, then they let me know, and I come either over there or and look at the paperwork and make sure they're in compliant. And when they are, then I will go ahead and approve them in the ATMS file, which is an automated training management file that all law enforcement and criminal justice is in.
So you spend a lot of time basically going through the files and checking the list to make sure that they have all those requirements as per state statute, and they meet the requirements, and they have the training. Now, interestingly, there is so much training per year that an officer has to have, and you also are checking those records as well, are you not?
I will spot check those on a needed basis, where an officer every 4 years has to meet a certain requirement in high liability areas and other sections, where it's a total of 40 hours that they have to meet on a mandatory retraining for certification, along with the firearms qualification they have to do every 2 years.
It has changed so much from back in the days that prior to me being hired, I had to have 365 hours of minimum standards, which is now, that is, I don't know.
Over 720, yes.
Yeah, it has grown so much. When you heard stories of the older officers when I started.
Sure.
That they gave you a gun and a badge and said, go enforce the laws. And we kind of laugh about that now, but that for so many years was the way that it was. And Florida has really evolved and set that standard, and it just really raised the bar to make sure, like you said, you have qualified, competent, trained people to enforce the laws and protect us.
Yes. Florida is known as one of the setting the standard throughout the nation, really, in what we do as far as certification and standards and recertification and training.
Now, Chuck, we talked earlier, about your time, in the Marine Corps and your time in Vietnam. How did some of that training and experience, looking back, how did that prepare you for training here with FDLE and providing that stuff for the new officers?
Well, I guess it put me in a situation in Vietnam where it was a life and death and survival type situation. And sometimes officers find themselves in that situation every once in a while. Sometimes they won't be in that situation for years, but then all of a sudden they are. Mm-hmm. And how to handle a situation like that, I think that's where your training comes in. And the officers, we can never give them enough training. We give them basic training when they're in the academy, but it's so important for the agencies nowadays. And they're realizing that, to do more scenario-based training and put these officers in situations where they could walk into a room and boom, here they are. What do they do? How do they handle that? And again, sometimes officers fall back with not enough training and maybe react a little bit quicker than they should. But that's where I think that we're really focusing in on training today, is making sure that officer is as prepared as we can possibly put that person in those scenario-based trainings so they can stay alive.
Yeah, and there's so much more than we talk about the physical and the mental aspect of it, but just training on how to talk to people, how to de-escalate, and to avoid some of the pitfalls that other officers have fallen into just by a comment or a nod of the head or a look in the eyes. It's just so much more. And then, of course, you have, your statute training, interview and interrogation techniques, and forensics. I mean, there's just so much that it entails. It's not just driving fast and shooting guns and whipping out the taser.
It was fortunate for me that I always look at it. It was fortunate to me I was 30 years old before I started in police work. So I was in the private industry for quite a while. And I think it helped me in my communication skills, talking with people, seeing people in domestic type situations and how those things were handled. And so much nowadays that the officers get in there and they come right out of college, and the only training that they receive or the life experience they receive is when they're in the academy. Yes. And then they're expected to take care of everybody else's problems when they're on the street. That's so tough, and that just comes with experience and well-trained field training officers that are with those people until they feel comfortable that those officers are ready to be out there on their own.
Such an important thing to go through that field training officer program, to
so
vet
important.
To vet the ones that are going to do well and to identify problems. And if they can't be corrected, then maybe they need to go back to their prior life.
Well, in the field training program now, Chip, we mentioned before that there was never a course or training for field training officers when we went through, and there's quite an extensive program that they have right now, and it's a advanced program where the officers can receive salary incentive pay for that, but it's important that they understand what the recruits are going through in the academy, so when they come to an agency for the first time, they know what they have learned, what they have been through, and how to take over from there. So,
absolutely. Well, Chuck, thank you so much for being on the show today, and thank you for all you do for the officers and for those that are protecting us.
Well, thanks for having me, Chip. I appreciate it.
For more information, you can check them out on the web at www.fdle.state.florida.us. That's going to do it for this edition of Crime Stoppers. Keep in mind, Heartland Crime Stoppers is an organization that helps law enforcement solve crimes through anonymous tips and monetary rewards. It encourages a cooperative partnership between law enforcement, the media, and the community to ensure security and enhance our quality of life within Polk County. For more information on us, you can check us out at heartlandcrimestoppers.com or follow us on Facebook at Heartland Crime Stoppers Florida. And until next time, keep in mind, it's a crime, and you can help make sure that they don't get away with it.